Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon and good evening. Welcome to our weekly webinar. My name is Tolu Adeosho, and I'm the host of this webinar. I'm also an assistant secretary of Voice of Men 360. And what I do for a living is I'm a registered social worker, and it's my great pleasure to host this weekly webinar. Thank you, Voice of Men 360 and the team for giving me this opportunity. Every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are running a bit late today, we have webinars where we bring experts from different fields and discuss on particular topics. The goal is to create awareness by sharing valuable information within our communities we believe will be useful in some way to people. Before I introduce our special guest today, I want to give you a brief introduction of what Voice of Men 360 is about. We are a nonprofit organization founded in 2020 and is based in Toronto, Canada. Voice of Men 360 organization was born out of seeing the tremendous needs of boys and men, and so it's stepped up to support and help them in many areas of their lives. We are part of the International Men's Day movement, which is a global organization. International Men's Day follows 6 pillars, which is about the overall well-being of boys and men. International Men's Day has been around for 21 years and is in nearly 90 countries around the world. These countries have joined together to do various activities regularly. So our topic for today's webinar is the integrated masculine at home and at work. And our special guest will be exploring the archetypes of the mature masculine, which is the lover, king, warrior, magician. What do they look like in the workplace? A word on the king archetype, which is power, presence, and poise, which brings on power, presence, and poise, and how to be an integrated man in the workplace, both as a worker and as a leader. So our special guest today is Dr. Camille Nehuser. Dr. Camille Nehuser is the owner and founder of Repassionate Your Organization. She worked in the international development sector, so the international NGOs and United Nations, for 14 years. And throughout her career, she's helped medium and large organizations revolutionize their vision, boost employee motivation and engagement, and increase their productivity and income. She works with leaders to reinvent their organization guided by passion, purpose, and inner power. She holds a professional doctorate in organizational learning and knowledge sharing. Let's welcome our guest, Dr. Camille Nehuser. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Tolu, for the lovely introduction. Thank you for having me, Voice of Men 360. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you very much. So I just want, before you get into your presentation, because I do believe you have one for us, can you tell us more about your childhood and what motivated you to do what you do today?
Yes, sure. So I guess I discovered the world of organizations at an early age when I was 6 years old. My mother was a regular donor for a UN agency helping children, UNICEF. And I became very fascinated with what I could see was the power of people coming together in an organization with a shared vision to change the world and make the world a better place. In that case, it was for children, but there's many organizations. Voice of Men 360 is one, for instance. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So it sounds like your mom was quite influential in the work that you do today. And then therefore from there, you discovered a passion to help men.
Yes. So I'm passionate about organizations and I love men. I love working with them. And very often they are in leadership positions in organizations. And I strongly believe, and I know because I've seen it, that when men leaders come as in their highest expression, they can really make a big change in their organizations and by extension in the world.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is that, because oftentimes men are in positions of power, you strive to help men to be the best that they can be and to drive an organization to become the best it can be. So you work with men and the organizations to do
yes,
that.
exactly.
Awesome.
And I also work not only with men who are already in leadership positions, but also those who have aspirations and who have talent, who have yes, who are bright stars in their organization, rising stars. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So that's good to know too. So not only people that are already there, but people that are hoping to become a leader one day.
Yes.
So I believe you have a presentation for us that will explain
Yes.
more about the four archetypes of men. Can you please take it away?
Sure. Sivam, would you be able to start the presentation, please? Wonderful. Could you, yes, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to explain briefly the methodology I use and what it does, how I use it. So this methodology is based on identifying and releasing unconscious thoughts and limiting beliefs. The more limiting beliefs we release, the closer we get to the truth of who we really are. This is what I call for men, the integrated or the mature masculine. So this methodology is based on archetypes of power. There's a book by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette that is called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, Rediscovering the Archetypes of the Mature Masculine. So to start with, I just would like to say a word on archetypes. So they are a symbolic or general description of a set of human traits that are universal to everyone, to humanity. And we use them to describe recurrent characteristics and behaviors that people display. And we find them very often in myth, in fairy tales, in movies, in the media, in artwork, on social media as well, and so on. So there are many archetypes. You can see some of them on the screen. Some very common examples are the hero, the villain, the queen, the king, the mother, the father, the adventurer. And when I say these words, I'm sure that you immediately get a mental image. Maybe you remember them from these characters from a movie or a book. Maybe you think about someone you know, either in your life or someone you've seen in the media. In the methodology I use, I focus on four archetypes: the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. So these are the archetypes we display or embody when we are in our full power. And the more time, so we are talking to men today and about men. So the more time a man spends inhabiting these archetypes, the more integrated he becomes. Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette talk about the archetypes of the mature masculine. I talk about the integrated masculine, but some other people talk about the high masculine as well. Next slide, please. So we have to start with the archetype of the lover. The lover is the archetype it's about worth, value, and values. It's about self-respect, self-love, self-expression. The lover is someone who is highly charismatic, who is self-expressed, who knows what is worth, who looks within to find his own worth, who doesn't look outside in validation by the community, the tribe, his family, or his colleagues. He finds that within himself. He sources it within himself. That allows him to speak clearly and directly and express himself fully without censoring himself because he doesn't care. He's not afraid of others' judgment. So that's the archetype in power, but there's always a shadow side to every archetype. And for the lover, so next slide, please. The shadow side is, or the fear archetype, is the prostitute. The prostitute, so it's not about, we're not talking about people who are prostitutes here. We are talking about a symbol, about an archetype. And so it can be a man or a woman. It's not what this is about. But the prostitute archetype is about not knowing worth, our worth, and trying to so therefore seek validation from others, and not speaking the truth because we are scared of other people's judgment and of rejection. It's about yeah, I think that's enough on the prostitute. Let's move to the next slide, please. Sivam, I am not seeing the slides on the screen. Is that normal?
I'm not seeing it too.
Okay, thank you. So the archetype of the king or of the sovereign now. So the king or the sovereign is the archetype who not only has a dream, but takes responsibility for the dream, takes responsibility for their vision and for making it happen. So typically it's someone who is very decisive, who has authority, who has a commanding presence, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. Who also he's respected and inspirational because other people can see their passion for their dream and want to follow and to help. Also a very strong sense of identity. The king knows who he is, and a natural confidence. Next slide, please. In the fear aspect, this archetype is the child. So the child doesn't take responsibility for the dream. The child just dreams all day, and I'm sure we have all been there, or we know people who are there, who wish about having a different life, but never take action and never do anything about it. So stay in that dreamland, but never take responsibility. And that means often that to get what they want, instead of acting themselves, they try to manipulate others into getting them what they want, instead of knowing that their power is with them and they can get what they want. They just need to do it. And there can also be some jealousy, comparing themselves with others who are making their dream come true, and being jealous of their success. Next slide, please. The next archetype is in power is the warrior. So the warrior is willful. The warrior takes the dream of his king and makes it happen. Takes action to build. So he is also, think about the general of an army. The general of an army is there to protect the land, to establish the foundations of the kingdom, and so knows very clearly where the kingdom starts and where the kingdom ends. So the warrior, he's very good with boundaries, and also a very resourceful person who is able to draw in resources, so other people come follow, join the army of the general. And also he's powerful in the physical aspect, in the physical realm, both because of the building that he does, but also because of his stature, so his physical power in his body. Great team builder as well. Next slide, please. The fear aspect here is the victim. So, the warrior has all these resources and these people around him. The victim, on the other hand, feels alone, feels lonely. It's the poor me, it's the victim consciousness that we all know about. Why me? There's always a crisis. It goes from crisis to crisis. Often we were talking about the body aspect, so ill health, feeling weak physically, not being good with boundaries, not feeling powerful. Next slide, please. The magician. So the magician is the one who takes the creations, the foundations of the warrior, and makes them, grows them at scale and very quickly, because he has this, he sprinkles magic on everything. So and it can look easy from the outside because the magician just has this magic touch. So these are your networkers, for instance, people who are able to build and activate networks in very quickly because they have this magic about them that people just want to come and be part of the adventure. Also someone who follows his intuition very who knows how to follow his intuition, who doesn't need to know what the plan is from A to Z to take action, who trusts himself and his inner guidance to be successful. Next slide, please. On the other hand, the saboteur is the one who sabotages himself or his creations, because he's very much in his head, very anxious, always needs to see the whole plan, and which is not possible, because he's afraid of what might go wrong, so never takes action, always feels like he doesn't know enough. So always it's very much in his head, a lot of anxiety, a lot of overthinking, not following his intuition. And that anxiety can also lead to like that feeling that mental weight that can even times turn into a bit of depression, anxiety, worry, and also feeling like an imposter. So a person who always feels that he or she doesn't know enough to take action, to be legitimate, scared of appearing like a fool. That's the archetype of the saboteur. Next slide, please. So I have summarized the archetypes for you in a table, and here I want to talk a little bit about what they look like in the workplace. So we'll start with the column to the right, which is the column of the lover. So we said it's about value, it's about worth, it's also about desire, and about standards. So this is in the workplace, it would be, for instance, the person in charge of pricing, of risk management, of quality control, of standards. So someone like a chief financial officer, for instance, typically. Then if we go to the column to the left, which is the sovereign, the king. So it's quite obvious, that one. It's the person in an organization or business who has the dream, the vision, the mission, and also the brand to give a visual representation to that dream, and that's obviously the CEO, the chief executive officer. Next column to the right is the warrior, and in the workplace is the one who is in charge of resources, so human resources, but also systems and structures and technology. So it would be your chief operation officer, your chief technology officer, or your chief information officer. And then the next column to the right is the networker, the person who takes the creation and makes it known with the rest of the world. So communications, marketing, sales, strategy as well. Because strategy is about taking something and making it more efficient, more impactful. Knowledge, because knowledge is knowledge is power. And if you look in the middle of the table, there's a line in a bold in high captions, and you will see that I am, so the sovereign identity, willing to stand for, the warrior, does whatever it takes, and create, the magician, what I love, the lover. But really, it starts with, what do I love? What do I desire? What do I desire to create, to do in this world? So that's why for the lover, we talk about instigation. That's where everything starts. And that's why I also started my presentation with the lover. So what I love, I am willing to stand for and create. So as you can see, they all hold each other by the hand. Those archetypes. That's why I talk about the integrated man. Tolu, you are muted.
Okay, so I had to switch laptops, and so I'm not used to this one. It's actually my husband's laptop. So thank you very much for that. I heard quite a bit there, and I just want to see if I can do a bit of a summary. So you talked about 4 different types of archetypes and then the fear side to it. So you talked about, originally you mentioned the lover. So that's a person that values their self-worth. They're full of self-expression. They have charisma. They have the ability to speak clearly. And then you talked about what the fear type is, the prostitute, which is someone that basically ends up doing more self-harm. They kind of don't know about who they are. They don't know their self-worth, correct?
Yes, they don't know that self-worth. Exactly. They're afraid to speak up because they're afraid of other people's judgment.
Okay. And then you mentioned about the sovereign, the king. So that's the archetype that takes responsibility. They make dreams happen. There's someone who makes decisions. They have authority. They're able to inspire others to join and get behind the dream naturally. That's just their ability. And so you said, but the opposite of that, the fear side, is the child. They don't take responsibility for their dream. They can manipulate. They can get jealous. And then I heard next about the warrior. You said they take the dream of the king. They draw resources to the team. And those are more the types like the human resources, the chief operating officer. But then the opposite of that, when you have the fear, is the victim. They go, poor me. They're always in a crisis. And things never work for them. They never have resources. They have loss of money, loss of wealth. And so that's one. And then the magician was the last one I heard, which takes action of the warrior. They're extremely good at networking. They're witty. They believe in trust, intuition, and go on the gut feeling. And those are the people that are like the chief strategy officer. But then the opposite is a saboteur, which they sabotage themselves. They're very much in their head. They want to have all the facts, but they get very depressed. They can get very anxious. Correct?
Perfect. It's a very good summary.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to adjust this laptop because it's not, the camera's not the same. I think I'm supposed to be staring at.
No, we can see you well.
Okay, because the camera is down below and it's not up above. So it's weird because I feel like I'm looking where I'm not supposed to be looking. So anyway, thank you. Thank you for that. So now, how important is it to, understand like these archetypes?
Yes. I mean, in so many ways, but one thing to be aware of is that we all have all these archetypes in us.
Okay.
And on a bad day, we have more fear archetypes. The fear voice talking to us. You can think about it as you are the king of your court. And you have 2 councils. You have the fear council and you have the power council. And you have a choice in every moment as to who you listen to. You can listen to the power council or you can listen to the fear council. And on a good day, we listen to the power council and we feel that things are easy. And on a not so good day, we listen to our fears more. So the first thing to realize is it's all there, and we can choose in every moment what we tap into. And also, we all have an archetype that, because of our natural gifts and talents, we are more comfortable with, or more dominant. That is more dominant. So, I mean, like I was saying, for instance, someone who has a lot of sovereign energy, for instance, will be a natural CEO.
Okay.
Someone who has more ability to value things will be so it's the lover, for instance, a chief finance officer.
Okay, so then how do these archetypes of the mature masculine help men?
Right. So again, in many ways. So with my clients, what I do is that I get them to recognize that these archetypes exist within them, and also to not judge themselves for where they're at. This is a map. This is a framework. This is an ideal picture of what can be. And we are all on a journey. We are all here to do our work, and knowing is the first step to change. So for men, it's to realize, not beat themselves up, because that's actually the victim, but to realize that this is where I am as a person, and this is where I can be, and take some actions. It's really about taking actions, not being frozen into sabotaging ourselves, which is the saboteur. Yes.
So what you're saying is understanding when they're floating between the archetypes that they're supposed to be operating in, and floating between the fear archetypes, and so that they can get out of that fear place and not be stuck and move back to operating in the normal archetype they're supposed to be operating in.
Exactly. So, I mean, at our core, we are powerful beings. So it's just it's remembering that, and stopping the voices that tell us otherwise. And those voices, maybe they can manifest in the external world, but they always come from us in the first place. And it's about not believing these voices and knowing that we are a powerful being, and for a man, knowing that he is already an integrated man.
Okay. So then how do they balance between, this powerful archetype person at work, and like the CEO, COO, CFO, and then their home lives? How does
right. Well, as you could see from my presentation and from the table, these archetypes can be very useful to, for instance, to know where you operate with the most ease at work, but it's also a very useful framework at home. I mean, a dad is a lover, for instance, values their family life, values their children, values time spent with their spouse and with their child. The sovereign is maybe has a vision for their family, for where they want to take their family in life. And he's decisive like that, makes decisions, doesn't wait for someone else to make the decisions, doesn't rely on, obviously, the spouse is always there. The powerful couple makes decisions together, but the integrated man doesn't shy away from taking responsibility and making decisions. In the warrior, takes action, makes things happen, gathers the resources, gathers family members, friends, to help with projects. And the magician, I mean, also the magician, I didn't say that in my presentation, but the magician is also the one who doesn't take himself too seriously. The one who doesn't care about looking like a fool because he knows how to have fun in life. knows how to make magic in everyday life.
Hmm.
And you know, a man in his magician is beautiful. It can be, I don't know, making surprises for a spouse, for instance, or um, taking children. It can be very simple things, taking children to the park and teaching them, I don't know, about nature. That's, you know, it's the creativity as well. So being creative in everyday life.
Okay, so that's how it can be interconnected. We can
Yes.
see these type of men in our homes, whether it's as a father and just the way they may love on their children, or how they get creative as a magician, as a father, or even the decision making, like you mentioned, which is the warrior. And right, did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay. And so this is how it can be integrated and related in the home and the workplace. Now,
Yes.
this is not part of the questions I was going to ask you, but as I'm thinking about this, can you be one type at home? And I do believe you mentioned that you can have different types. So we have a dominant one, but can you be more dominant as in the workplace as, let's say, the king, and at home you're more of like the magician? Does that work, or it doesn't?
That's a very interesting question. I don't know, but I know that the mentor who with whom I learned about this tool always said that we have a dominant one. So I don't know if that would mean I mean, why not? Maybe you know, you can be a CEO at work, but when you're at home, you are just, you know, the silly dad who always makes magic. Maybe.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Like, I wonder if you can reconcile both, or is it that it's kind of like you're always like this king type, regardless, because that's your dominant personality. So I guess we'll have to look more into that. So, based on your experiences working with men for a number of years, where do you see the most challenges or struggles that men have to confront at work or home, and why is that?
Right. Okay. So I would say the first thing is often men are very hard on themselves. And that's why I'm really insisting on the fact that this is not, this framework, this tool is not for you to feel down about yourself at all. It's about recognizing you're on a journey as a man, as an individual. And there are some areas of your life where you have developed more than others for whatever reason. And it's just about not becoming complacent and taking action to continue progressing. So that's one thing. The second thing, well, maybe I think sometimes men, they want to do it all on their own. And if you look back at the framework, the warrior knows how to draw in resources. And I think often we make these mistakes. I think women make it too, but I know that when there are surveys, men often report that they feel quite lonely. Maybe they feel they don't have good friends, or so it's really important to cultivate those and to see that it's not a sign of weakness to have people around you who can help. Quite the opposite. The general has an army. The general doesn't go and battle on his own, ever. The general is a great warrior, but knows that he will have more impact if he has people who have his back. So that's another thing. Yeah.
So it's recognizing as a man that you don't have to do this all by yourself, that oftentimes in any walks of life, you will need other people around you, and to surround yourself with good people, and that you can't carry this burden by yourself.
Exactly.
Is what I'm understanding. Okay. And so how do you help men overcome these fears or these struggles that they have when it comes to
so I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. I really believe in the power of coaching, especially in a one-on-one capacity, because that's what allows you to go very deep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also an ideal place to help men trust themselves and trust their intuition again. That was the other thing I forgot to mention before, is often men are, and it's beautiful, they have, they're very logical, they have a lot of mental abilities, and in some traditions it's said that the intuition is more feminine. I don't think it's true, but being an integrated man also means knowing when to use your intuition and not only listening to your logical brain. And it's also about harnessing your logical brain, but still following your intuition. So you can, all of a sudden have an inspiration for a project that you want to realize. That's your intuition speaking to you. That's your magician. And then with your logical brain, you're going to develop that project, find the steps, create something, and but also not be too rigid about this is the project and it can't change. So it's also keeping that flexibility. So harnessing the logic is what I want to say. So when I work with men, a lot of the time it's about that. It's your logical capacities are an asset for sure, but do not let them trap you. Do not let them become dictate everything that you do.
Okay, so sorry. Yes. No, I thought you were. No, continue.
No, I was going to say another thing, another way I work with men in the workplace is to do group coaching, because it's I really believe in the power of interaction and helping people, men, to know how to communicate better in the workplace. And this framework is wonderful, because when people identify what is their dominant archetype, then you can start building very balanced teams. While this man is very strong in his warrior, who is the magician here? And how can they work well together? How can we build bridges and have them speak a language that each can understand? We were talking about that, you and I, before. Power of communication, of good communication, of understanding each other, one another. Yeah.
Okay, so what I heard was that trying to help men not to just follow their logical reasonings and mind at times, but to sometimes follow their intuition, or what people may sometimes deem their feminine side. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So what you also do is you help organizations find the different archetypes that work well together and put those together so that they can optimize their organization, their profit, their output and everything. Correct?
Exactly.
Okay, that's pretty powerful and awesome. So then, what are some of the simple steps or ways that men can take in order to balance work and home? In order to balance work and home.
Right.
Because we kind of touched earlier on, what if a man is more of the king is he always going to be the king at home? Is he going to be?
Yes.
Or can he be a magician at home and be a king at work, or opposite, vice versa, be a king at home and be a magician at work?
Yes. Well, I would say for the men listening, maybe one simple exercise you can do is look at these different archetypes and try to, again, honestly, but also with self-love and self-understanding and empathy for yourself, establish where you are. Where am I at home? Where am I at work? And how can I develop more in the areas where maybe I'm not very developed yet. And then what I really want to emphasize is the power of action, because action is what is going to propel us from being in fear, and it's pushing through the fear. It's often with action, almost always. I'm sure you know that in your work as a social worker. What stops us is the fear of failure, and that's not going to go away. So the only way of bursting through that is to take the action in spite of the fear. I read a great quote the other day that was saying, true leaders are not devoid of fear. They just have accepted that it's part of life, and they're going to push through it no matter what. I'm paraphrasing not very well, but that's so I mean, yes, it's taking the time for reflection and looking honestly at where you are, and starting slowly to take action to to get further on the journey of remembering that you're an integrated man.
So what I would say is you're talking about leaning into the fear, not allowing fear to drive you. Exactly. Acknowledging that the fear is there, acknowledging these self-doubts and everything, but then forging ahead.
Yes, exactly.
Wow, that's great. So then can one person go from being, let's say, the magician, which is more of a joker, to being more of like the warrior or the king or the lover? Is that possible? Can you, because I know you said these are dominant, right, in us, but can you change that?
You can, you can absolutely hop between them. But like I was saying, they're always all within you. So it's also knowing at maybe that goes back to your question, what are the simple steps you can take? It's also assessing the situation and knowing where, according to the situation at hand, what would be the best archetype to pull up. So I don't know, for instance, if at work you see that one of your managers is struggling to make a decision, that's called managing upwards, is how can you help them? How can you help them move through that threshold? What is it that they need at that point in time? And it can be the same for your spouse, for instance. At another time, I don't know, everyone is stressed at work. Maybe you can come in and lighten the mood by being a little bit more lighthearted, more of a joker magician, or same at home, yeah, you know that you're a new magician when your wits and your sense of humor is very present. And then at other times, it's really not the time to crack a joke at work or at home, and you need to be more in your warrior. And this is what we're doing, folks, and this is what is this is how we're going to move through this. And at other times, you will need to inspire. Either it is your colleagues or your family, and be in your king.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is when a situation warrants, because we have these archetypes in us, sometimes our dominant one may kind of step aside for another type to come when it's warranted.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, yes. And then it helps to balance things out, right? Where
exactly
in the workplace you may need that sense of humor, or in the family, and so then you're able to kind of take on different types, like your less dominant archetype to do what is needed, or to be in that moment, right?
And it's very important to trust yourself that you're going to make the right decision in the right moment. And if you make a mistake, it doesn't matter. It's like, this is not a game of becoming perfect. This is a game of growing. And we know that we learn the most from our mistakes, and we have the resource to recover from them always. So it's pushing through that fear of making a mistake and doing the damn thing, and we'll be okay no matter what.
Okay,
that's the warrior.
It's looking fear like in the face and saying, I'm just going to do this thing. I'm not going to be afraid.
Yes.
That's right.
And one thing I wanted to say, at the beginning you said how my mother inspired me or influenced how she played a role in my career. But one thing that my dad always said to me, and I realized when I started getting familiar with these archetypes, is the warrior. He always said, it will be okay no matter what. You will find the solution, you will find the way. And that lesson, that simple lesson, helped me do things in my life that I would have been too paralyzed by fear to try otherwise. I studied. I did studies I would never have thought. I never thought I was going to, do a doctorate or finish a doctorate. I traveled to many countries on my own, always because I had that voice of my father in my head that it will be okay. Never not do something because you're afraid it might not be okay. It also doesn't mean you need to take inconsiderate risks. That's not what I'm saying, but don't let the fear of things going wrong stop you from living your best life.
Trying, yeah. So it's so what I'm even hearing is the warrior is a bit of more of an encourager as well. So not only do they rally people around them, but they also encourage people to stay the course, to pursue what they want to do.
If you think about a general is very skilled at motivating his army. There's a wonderful movie, Henry V. And there's several versions. There's one on Netflix that is, maybe it's called The King actually, but it's on Henry V. And you will see how he completely changes the outcome of a battle by how he leads his troops. It's really beautiful to watch. So I would suggest that is a really good movie to see the power archetypes in action.
Okay. So thank you so much. I'm done with my questions. I'm just wondering, Stefan, do we have any questions from Facebook or YouTube for Dr. Camille today? Camille, sorry. I'm not sure. Hold on one second. I'm trying to see if there's anything on here. So I don't know. Is there anything else you would like to teach us before we sign off for today about these types, these archetypes?
There is one thing that we were talking about, and I think it was before this this call. You were asking me, how can you trust your intuition more? And I told you how I do it and how I teach my clients how to do it. And it's very simple. If you're not sure about something and you want to know what your inner voice says, ask yourself the question out loud and then listen very closely to the first thing that comes to your mind. Not the second or the third, because that's already your saboteur trying to keep you safe and throw other options at you. Listen to the first thing. And that's the voice that you need to hear. That's how you train or retrain yourself to listen to your intuition.
So the first thing we hear. So what if the first thing is something negative, though? How do we deal with that?
Well, it depends. It depends. I mean, it's more, what should I do right now, for instance? Or not. I wouldn't suggest asking yourself a question about, that is going to have to do with your worth, because our sense of worth, we need to decide that we are worthy. There's no other way. There's no other way. So it has to be just a foundational belief that we have in ourselves, that just by virtue of being born, I am worthy. I'm worthy on being on this planet. I'm worthy of taking the space I take. I'm worthy of this life. And you have to decide that. So I would say, never ask yourself a worth question, ever. Because if you ask that, it means that there's already like a chip in the armor, and that you're already doubting that. And the lover doesn't even go there. And that's what makes everything else possible.
So always acknowledging your self-worth before anything and saying, I am worthy. I deserve to be in this position. I deserve to have this family. I and acknowledging that maybe the work that you've put into it and all these things, but then it's also, so then the question, so let's say, for example, someone's struggling at work and they go, should I quit? And the first thing that goes in their mind is yes. Now, how would you reconcile that? Is it?
Well, I mean, maybe just because it's the first answer doesn't mean it's not going to be scary. And that's exactly what we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And often the truth, our true inner voice is going to tell us things that we don't really want to hear because they are scary, because they are going to require us taking massive, terrifying actions, For me, I mean, I delayed quitting jobs because I knew that's what I needed to do, but I was scared. But then, and I didn't know what would come next. But that's where to push through the fear. I mean, and if your voice says yes, it doesn't mean you have to quit in the next 5 minutes. You can also be,
work through an action plan.
Yeah. Work for an action plan, an exit plan, and consult your spouse, come up with, what is the timeline that would work for this family. But don't deny this voice, because it is your true self that is talking to you.
So from there, if, when you do listen to that inner voice, the intuition, where it's like, where you're not feeling at ease because it's like, no, this is really the right thing to do. And then you start to follow through. It sounds like you can eventually find yourself on the right path and your passion and your destiny.
Exactly. On the path of the power archetypes. And listening to your intuition very often is not going to be comfortable. But being too comfortable in life is often a sign that we are not moving. As human beings, we need to be moving. We need to be evolving. I mean, as a species, even that's humankind, and led by men very much so, has evolved to where we are today, because we deep down we know that we are not supposed to stay in the same place, and that means being uncomfortable a lot of the time. And yeah, discomfort is a sign that you're alive.
Okay. So if someone was interested in working with you and learning more about these, how would they connect with you?
So I am on LinkedIn, so they can find me under my name, Camille. I'm rebuilding my website at the moment. So right now, the URL is not working, but it will very soon. I am also on Instagram, also under my name. If some of your audience, I don't know if use Clubhouse, I'm also on Clubhouse, also under my name. And on Facebook, also under my name. So you can find me under all these social media platforms. And I can also there's also my email, which maybe I can type in the chat box.
Yeah, and then we can post it on various platforms after. Well, thank you so much for taking your time. I know we had a bit of a delay and everything. Thank you. I see that. So thank you so much for taking your time to meet with us today to explain more about these 4 archetypes. I feel like I've learned a lot, and even though I'm not a man, but I think it helps me to understand more about my husband and my son as he's going to grow up to be a man, and just understand other men that I may work with around me. And I hope that as men have been watching today, they're able to tap into this and understand more about, the archetype that's their dominant, and maybe work towards some other ones that they would like to see come out and manifest. Thank you very much once again for taking your time. I do appreciate it. We appreciate it here at Voice of 360.
Thank you very much, Tolu, and thank you very much, Sivam, for inviting me on this show. It's a real pleasure to be able to talk to this group about these archetypes, and I really appreciate the work you do with and for men. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're just going to wrap up the show. Just a reminder that we run a few live talk shows on a few on a weekly basis. We do open up. We're always looking for guests. It's on Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we also have equivalent of that in Tamil. So that's Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do have a panel discussion on the second Saturday of each month, and that's evening 7 to 8 p.m. And on the fourth Saturday of every month, we also have a panel discussion in Tamil, which is the same time, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we do need volunteers. So if you're willing to work with our organization, we are open to having you partner with us in any form. And so you can find out more about us. I'm going to give the information. And then we are looking to work with professionals, community organizations, NGOs, social service workers, social workers, trainers, coaches, mentors, mental health professionals, and so on and so on. So you can link with us with our organization, Voice of Men 360. Our website is voiceofmen360.org. Our email address is info@voiceofmen360.org. And we can also be found on YouTube. You can subscribe to our channel, please. Facebook, Voice of Men 360. And we do have a page on LinkedIn, as well as we're on Twitter and we're on Instagram. And so we do have an upcoming art competition. And so it's we have been prolonging the end of the competition because we're waiting for more people to submit. So whether you have poetry, actual artwork, which includes drawings. I'm sorry, I don't have the pamphlet in front of me, but you can submit that to info@voiceofmen360.org. And we are also looking for people that are willing to be judges. And so there are prizes that you can win if you do enter this art competition. And we will be announcing the closing date for this competition at a later date. So thank you very much for joining our weekly webinar. And I hope that you have learned a lot today. And we are looking forward to seeing you next week. And we will find out what we'll be discussing then. Thank you very much, Dr. Camille and everybody else that joined us today. And take care.